Let's take a look at how to make a pressure gauge. So I'm going to start by making a cylinder here, and that will act as a pressure gauge. It's too big at the moment, so let's scale it down to really small in size. And it's right in here. And so I'm going to do the height, and I'm going to pull it out a bit, something here, and give it exactly the height that you're looking for the gauge, maybe a little bit less than that. I would like to put it straight right here, and it's not going to be just straight, it's also a little bit outward, but we can do that right after we are done with the main body here. And let's name it. I'm going to double click and call this one gauge, so I know what this is. Control D to duplicate. And now after I duplicate this, so you can see in the outliner gauge is the original, gauge 1 is our duplicated copy. So original one, the one that's going to have this input and changes, I'm going to hide it. Visibility, put 0 in there, hit enter, that's going to hide the original. So I'm not going to change that position yet, just leave it there. And now gauge 1, let's make it how we want the final gauge to look like. So for this one, what I really wanted to add is I'm going to go into multi-cut and going to add a tip here, like somewhere around here. And now we will select all these faces and we'll extrude a little bit outward to get something like this. There you go. Now I think I'm wanting to give it a little bit more height, so I'll grab all these vertices and I'm going to pull this up. So this inner edge I don't need anymore. I'm going to double click, select it, hold Control and delete to remove it. Now I'm going to grab this area and that area, and going to bevel this so these corners can stay as they are. So when I go into smooth mode, here we go. So this is how it will look like. Now let's place them in the right place, and also we wanted to create a hole in there so it look like it's actually going in there. All right, I'm gonna isolate select, and you can see in the lower area it kind of squashes in because we don't have bevel on this one. So I'm gonna click bevel. Now when I hit 3, this lower shape would stay as it is. All right, so now if you remember, we have that hidden gauge in there. Now why was that gauge was left there so that we can make a hole with that gauge, and then we'll insert this inside there. So I'm going to turn this on, and then since I'm in isolate select, it only shows me 1. So this gauge, I'm going to increase the size of it a bit. Like instead of radius 0.02, let's make it a little bit bigger, like 0.025. Just so the hole is a little bit bigger than the gauge itself. Now how do we rotate? So select both of them so they have the same exact angle. Freeze the transformation first, delete history. Now rotate them together. Now this is good, but I'm noticing here, so our gauge should not be where the nut and bolt is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab all these pieces and go under mesh and combine them, so they're all a single mesh. Now if their pivot point is not in the center, then you can go under modify center pivot. That's going to automatically put it in the center. Now what I wanted to do, I wanted to rotate them a bit. Let's say we rotate them 45 degrees. Now we have 2 meshes, one on the top, one actual gauge. So the actual gauge is going to be hidden at a moment for now. Now let's make a hole first. To make a hole, now we're going to use a Boolean process. Now we haven't used that so far. So how Boolean process works is, so you select 2 pieces of geometry, like in this case rim, and I'm going to select this piece which I want it to be subtracting from the other shape. So then I'll go under mesh, Boolean, and you can see a lot of them here. What I'm looking at is a difference. So I'm going to click on difference. Now after clicking on difference, you're able to see this menu over here. Now also you will notice that there is one new polygon that came in here inside our outliner. Now if I go into the poly Boolean, now one is the gauge by itself, which is our gauge right here. Now second one, poly surface 13, is our rim. Now we can see how we want these guys to display themselves. So we can click on wireframe or shader mode, like that's a shader mode right now. Now it's a wireframe. We're looking at the rim at a moment, and now down here as well. Now right now you're looking at the wireframe. I can also go into shader mode and right in here, or I can go completely hidden. Now you can see a hole there that's been created, but it's not deep enough. Now what we wanted to do with our gaze, I wanted to push that in more. See, I can still select it, even though, I mean, let's show this so it's not hidden anymore. Shader view. So I wanted to push this back in straight, but if I look at these arrows, they don't really go straight back in. So to change these arrows, you want to go under tool settings, and while you're in a translate tool, which is W, is a shortcut for translate, and then axis orientation is set to word. If I change this to object, now see, those arrows will line up with your object. Now that way you can push this straight back in. This would allow you to create that hole deeper. See, I'm going to go back in a bit, all the way up to here. And now, and I'm going to close this window. If I go back to the object mode, and in here, I can set this gaze to hidden. Now you'll see that hole kind of goes all the way through the rim. So it's going to create an illusion that is coming from inside. All right, since we have this one now, I'm going to hide this one on the top as well. So now we are left with this mesh that has a hole in it. This is our rim. Now it's the time to turn on our other gaze. So which is gaze 1. So I'm going to grab gaze 1 and turn that one visibility on. And you can see it's already fitting in. And that's why we made 2 gazes. So one is a little bit larger. So it looks like that it has that little hole coming out from there. Here we go. That should be good enough. Now that's it. So now once it's done, now it's time to delete history. So we can grab these 2 and add it. Actually, we can delete all by type history, so there's no history on anything. And then also I'm going to freeze transformation, modify freeze transformations. So they're all set to, here you go. So everything is set. This one has rotations, so I'll freeze that as well. So now we're done with the tire. So now let's take this and duplicate this over all over on our wagon bed.